Welcome to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series. Today we have Christopher Flowers, Audio Description Narrator. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Sure. Thanks, Roy, for having me.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. I'd love to know about your experience in the world of audio description or audio description narration. Where would you like to start?
Well, I guess we should start about why I'm here. So I've been around audio description for some time. I started in 2001, really at the bare bottom. Started as a describer, working, writing the scripts, etc. And I worked my way up through to post-production supervisor, and then up to running the audio description department at WGBH Media Access Group. And then I got married, had kids, and switched over to narration. So I could still, raise some babies and work at the same time. And I did go to school to be an actor, and I have a theater degree. So that's kind of what I wanted to do anyway. And initially I had just fallen into the audio description world. So I've done about 20 years of that. So about 10 years on the, technical post side, and 10 years in the audio narration field.
Oh, wow. And when you say you're a describer, is that the writing of the audio description?
Yes. So there's a narrator and a describer. Sometimes they're confused, as being the same person. Sometimes it is the same person, but in my background, it was separate. So someone would write the script, the audio description scripts, and then the audio narrator would come in, and in my case, I would either direct the narrator in the booth when I was a producer, or I would take direction when I was a narrator.
So you had the advantage of both sides.
Oh, yeah.
How did that experience as a writer, or even a post-production supervisor or department head, how did that inform you as a narrator? Did you do things differently, knowing what those other roles were? Or?
It was hard. It was a challenge for sure in the beginning, because I was so used to, being, directing the talent in the booth. And whereas when you are the talent, you just have to remember, it took some time for me just to, shut up and read, kind of, so that was always my kind of big challenge. And I forget sometimes I forget how much audio description I have done in the booth as opposed to at the desk. I kind of sometimes still think of myself as being in the production side of it. About 2 years ago, I had called SAG and had them send me my lifetime earnings packet. They can print out everything you've done as a union actor, and all my audio description was union at that time. And they send me the packet, and you forget how much you've done. And it was, well over 500 hours, which equates, as you know, to well over 1,000 hours in the booth. But probably about 500-600 hours of SAG or audio narration, and then thinking back to how much I did in the post world, the 10 years before that, I'm sure it was well more than that. And it's just hard to think back that it's been 20 years now, because sometimes it feels like it was just last year when I started.
Sure. And with so many, almost, like you said, thousands of hours in the booth, did you find that, specifically about narration, and then let's talk more about your contribution within audio description as a narrator, did you find that you were doing pretty much the same thing once you got it, or did you adjust, or how was your experience as you grew in the narration when you were in the booth, if at all?
I remember because back in the day we did a lot of focus groups, and we were really concentrating on conventions and how to do audio description, and how to write the scripts and how to do that. So I always had that in my mind those kind of things in my mind when I'm narrating in the booth, like how to walk that. We used to talk about how to walk that tightrope line between newscaster and actor. That was always really important to me. And that's kind of what helped me, just maintain a level of professionalism and some kind of continuity.
You were talking about newscaster and actor, and how do you find that balance? Is either as a narrator or as you direct a narrator?
Right. Well, hopefully as a narrator, the booth director will direct you one way or the other, pull you back, or it's hard sometimes when you're listening to the actual program that you're narrating, and if it gets very excitable, there's a lot of explosions, there's a lot of action, there's heavy music, that can change your, you just have to have control to not change too much to match that, because sometimes they'll dip the program audio to let the audio narration kind of go over that, so you're not really talking as loud as you think you are. But when this is, there's explosions going on in your ears, you have to, try to maintain some kind of focus that you don't have to yell really loud to get over that. Gotcha. So it's just, that's part of it, I guess. As far as like when you're directing talent in the booth, I mean, you just kind of have to listen, and, you kind of take your cues from your audio engineer, and it all depends. I mean, there's all kinds of audio description going on nowadays. Some people are doing everything themselves, and just one person is doing certain parts of, for some things. But like when you reach the level of the networks, a lot of my audio description was mostly through Fox and CBS. They, the quality that you have to maintain is higher. So there's more people, there's more hands on it, and more ears on it,
And with that quality, it sounds like you do trust, as a narrator, you do trust you said the booth director and the sound person to be able to regulate and make sure it's not too much. Can you talk a little more about any changes that you do? For example, in let's say a movie that there's different emotional elements. Do you pretty much stay the same the whole way through?
It depends on, I think there's more leeway in film than television, because you really can kind of adapt if this is what whoever you're working for, whoever's doing the project. Again, there's different conventions for different production houses. So, but hopefully, I mean, the kind of the gold standard that whoever had started audio description, many years ago, and any kind of input or focus groups from the blind and visually impaired community, hopefully they maintain that. So I find, though, that if you are doing a soft romance, and a lot of times we used to pick the narrator based on the genre of the movie. Like, so if it was a real soft kind of sad romance, you'd pick a different voice than if it was, a heavy gunfire action army movie. So part of it is who you choose to be the narrator, and then the other part of it is not to say that you can't adjust kind of your levels in the booth based on what's happening, because a lot of people like that. A lot of people like when you kind of get excited as the movie gets excited too. The problem with that is, again, getting back to conventions, like you want it to have some kind of, just like we always used to compare to captioning. So captioning was always, they were very strict on a lot of their conventions on how it would read on screen, and the deaf community was very vocal about that, about how it should always be maintain a certain level of continuity and convention. And it's the same thing with authors that use like the Chicago style manual when they're writing books, or it's the same thing. You have to start with a template, and then the artistry comes in when you tweak that. And a lot of times, and having some improv background too, we used to say, it was very popular to say, you need to learn the rules before you break them. So that's kind of another way to look at it. And it usually doesn't go too crazy. I remember doing that Stevie Wonder video, and we had a celebrity narrator who we really let go very far on this music video, kind of being really slack on the convention. He just kind of was very kind of would talk his own way, or say, he would throw in extra words, or he would do, he would try and get the style to it. But there's not a lot of audio description in music, and music really does call for that kind of, flexibility.
That's Stevie Wonder. That's the What the Fuss?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite audio description samples. It puts me right in the space, and I can't help but just nod my head and smile. It's really
was fun. It was I was in Mr. Wonder's studio for like 3 days, and it was a lot of fun for such a small piece. That was one that was very high profile at the time, so we spent a lot more time. Like, usually you do not spend 3 days on a 2-minute music video, so, but that was a kind of a high profile one that was a lot of fun to direct. Like, and also being around people who didn't know about audio description at the time. Like, the narrator had no idea about it, and the engineer, we had pulled in our own engineer for that, because the engineers didn't even know how to really do it. So I remember that being a lot of fun in a lot of ways.
Wow. Can you talk more about some of the other things that you love about audio description?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I've said this to you, and I've been saying it for 20 years, pretty much the same kind of, it's pretty always the same answer. It's, it's great to be able to do something that you love, that you are somewhat talented in, and that's also good for the community. So audio description for me hit the 3 boxes. It's like I have some ability in this, I enjoy doing it, and it does something good for the world. That was the trifecta, and that's really why I stayed in it for as long as I did. Because there's always been a lot of challenges in audio description through the years.
Can you talk about some of those challenges that you faced and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I'd like to see. I mean, it's hard if you're just doing audio description. I'd like to see people be able to make more of a living at it, I suppose, because it's not. I mean, it is. Some of it is union work, some of it is not, but none of it that I've ever heard of, offers residuals or any kind of continuing money on it, and it's. That kind of thing, it would be nice to see. So coming up, it was not, it wasn't high paying job, in production. Like, those people deserve a lot more money sometimes than they get, because it's hard, it's high stress a lot of times, just like all, television and movie production is. And they all have their deadlines, and everyone has, certain, challenges of their own to deal with, So the biggest problem, I think, has always been the awareness. Like, I still, to this day, people ask me what I do, and I tell them, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that was a thing," or "I didn't know people did that," or "I didn't know about audio description." So that was always, it was nice too, in a way, because you kind of had a unique job, and but that would be good. More awareness is always good. Some other things, I often think about, like, where it's going, and where description's heading now. Because I haven't been working on a lot of projects this year, and I'm not sure where I'm still fitting in the field, but I know that there's interesting parts to description that, like, it would be nice sometimes to hear celebrity narrators, and sometimes it's not. So, I mean, it's again, there's always some fine lines one way or another. Just because, as much as I love Harrison Ford, just because Harrison Ford is a great superstar, that doesn't mean he would be a great audio narrator, So I feel like those kind of balances are, always challenging, because as, awareness it has grown in the last 20 years that I've been a part of it, but sometimes not as much as you think it should. But there's been more and more kind of celebrities in like audiobooks, and more celebrities even in audio description, and I think there's a place for that sometimes, and sometimes it's a chance for people, new narrators to come up through the ranks, and that's where you get your that's where you learn the craft, is by doing it. And so if we take too much of it out of the new narrator's hands, I think that's could be a problem.
And it sounds like with the celebrity example that you said with the Stevie Wonder video, that did, it took a little bit of, whether it was on the sound engineer side or whatever side, but again, you delivered an amazing product. And I can only think that influence of having a celebrity narrator could help the audience.
Well, that was the idea at the time. I know that Stevie Wonder and his press crew were working really hard at billing it as this is the first music video described, and there was supposed to be a lot of press, and there were some articles, and there was a lot of press at the time, and then it just kind of as the news cycle does roll, that's what I don't know of many other videos that do that. It's not a really cost-effective thing. I understand that from a production side of view, because it's very short, and at the time there was a lot of money involved in trying to just produce one. So, and that time music videos, they were coming out, a lot. Maybe they still are coming out as frequently. I don't know. I'm not watching a lot of MTV, show my age. So,
well, to your point, it sounds like the changes that have even happened in your career, even the incremental ones, the streaming services being able to have a click of the button away. There's a new device on some cable providers where you literally ask a microphone to turn on the track, and it does. And I'm thinking about also some other access points, whether it's some companies that are coming out with their own syncing, where you listen on your own headset so that a family can enjoy a film all together at the same time, and one of them has audio description and another doesn't. That all these things are now starting to happen. And where I'm excited is to hear from you and your perspective from the audio description narrator side, that this conversation is showing that it's, again, not just does it have audio description or not. It's not binary. That even going down to the point where you were making choices, you were really thinking about who's the best narrator for this project as a decision maker, that does make a difference, and it makes a huge impact on our audience's experience.
Well, I also wanted to, touch on just like who's doing the work. Like like I said, I have a hard time sometimes, figuring out which hat I have on, but as a narrator, and also as a, or as a booth director or something, you want someone who's trained, I think. You want someone who does have some, and not specifically trained in audio description. I mean, someone with like a theatrical background who has, who understands certain aspects of being a performer, because these are scripts. They are meant to be read. They are meant to be projected. They are meant to be articulated in a way. I always felt like singers make great audio narrators because of the training involved, that training with breath control and strength of voice to be able to do a 5-6 hour voiceover session. I think that's great training for this work. My training was mostly on stage, You're taught very early to project and hit the back wall and maintain, and then just doing many plays and over many many hours of rehearsal and many hours of performance, that's all a muscle that you train up. So I feel like that it's important that, the narrators do have some sort of, training outside of just being chosen to do the work.
And you think that training outside of audio description does make a difference? It sounds like it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's, it's a skill, skills when you apply for any job, you say what your skills are or where you've trained or what your degree is in or whatever. That's all can equate. Does that mean that someone who doesn't have that cannot do it? No. I mean, anyone, can make an attempt, but the final product and how much value you put on the quality and what you feel that your audience deserves is very important to, who you put in that chair.
I think you've already addressed this a little bit. Where would you like to see audio description go, knowing what you know?
Oh, I would like it to be honestly like, when we, and I still see some of this today, a lot of the question of audio description comes out as technical questions like, how does this work on my TV? Or how does this, why is this not work? And I have these problems on my own devices at home. Like, why is this camera not working? Or why is this, why is this not pumping out? That's the stuff that I would love that just to go away. Mm-hmm. I just would like it to be, because no one really questions that with like people know captioning. You turn it on, you turn it off, it's there. I leave my captioning on usually a lot of times. And audio description should be have the same access. The questions and the group things talking about audio description should be more about the quality, I feel, and it should be more about, who did a good job or this was great or whatever, instead of when people in the industry take time to speak to their consumers, they should be spending time on the quality and the content and not, why is my remote not working? That I feel like we're heading in that direction, and we're very close. Like some of the products that you had mentioned, that it's getting close to that. That's like what my dream has been for 20 years. It's like, I just want it to be, if you want to talk to me about audio description, about something that I've spent 20 years on, let's talk about the product and not about, those things. As far as where it's going, I don't think, especially in this time of COVID-19, I don't think we're going to be able to avoid how this is able to be done at home. Like even as an actor doing other things, audiobooks and video games or whatever, we're doing some of the work at home. I personally would love it to stay out of the home, like actually go to, like, it deserves to go to a studio or to go to a, some kind of setup, some kind of booth to be recorded well and to have another pair of ears on it. That's always important to me. But I really feel like that it's not going that way. I think it's, going to be outsourced to whoever can do it at home, which is good for the quality or the quantity of the product that will be out there. But I'm just hoping that the quality doesn't suffer.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like with that focus of quality, that as more audience members speak up specifically about quality, that is something that can become more of a focus. It sounds like there's so much complexity to the creation beyond even closed captioning that it literally takes more work and more involvement, and there's so many moving parts that focus on quality can sometimes get washed away. But you've really addressed a lot of those quality concerns.
Yeah, and and it is, like you said, it's about being vocal, your community being vocal. Like we'd always, noticed that the deaf community is much more vocal than the blind and visually impaired community. So they would get, we used to talk about how they would get, their demands met quicker or faster or whatever. So it's really just about, the community speaking up and saying what they want and what they need. And that's how that you're heard.
And speaking of heard, how can people reach you on social media or otherwise?
I am available however you want. On this website that we're doing this interview for, which is
theadna.org.
Right. I thought you had some kind of special speech you'd said for that, but
I should have played like some jingle.
Yeah, like a jingle or something. Anyone can call my agent or wherever, or anyone can, I'm on Facebook. I'm around, and also the community is growing. The narrator community itself, like you and I and other people, we still can't keep in touch, through each other. So I feel like that's another access. Like if an audio description narrator, they probably know this other, sometimes that does happen.
We'll play a little game of telephone.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what is it? The Kevin Bacon thing, 6 degrees of separation. So it's like, it's interesting, and it's very interesting how, I'm contacting, I know people through audio description that I would never know. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you did that. And, but I'm hoping that there's more, you always hope there's more TV. I really like the TV stuff. The films are great and good too, but it seems like more and more people are watching from home and downloading from home, and I won't go to the theater. I'll wait for this to come out, and I'll just Netflix it or, just buy it when it comes, on my TV for, a few bucks. So, and I feel like I had more enjoyment in doing the TV or still do, than the films. The films were great, and they're big, and they're, it's a great fun experience, not only to narrate, but to, just to do. But like the TV stuff is, that's daily in people's lives. So it's just really, I know, some of my favorite shows were The Big Bang Theory and New Girl, and I had a lot of fun on a lot of the McFarlane shows, the Cleveland Show and Family Guy and American Dad, and those things went out at like weekly. And so, that I really liked that kind of consistency, and just, knowing that if the show did have a following, like Gotham had a big following in the superhero community, I really liked being the narrator for that show. But that they would have access to that every week. It was great.
And with that access, you were a part of the family. That you were literally invited into people's living rooms or wherever they were watching it. And you're part of the ride.
Right. Even though we do try to not, part of the narrator's job too is not to bring too much focus on ourselves, just to kind of not get in the way of the show too much. Just give the necessary information and try and move on.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
It's a truly valuable service, and I've really been really blessed, and I'm very thankful that I've been able to make that a 20-year career, and hopefully I'll be able to continue in some regard in that. I mean, I'll always be in entertainment, I'll always be doing something, to provide whatever talents I have to whoever is willing to listen. So I foresee, I'm doing a lot of trying to get back into theater and doing more plays and such too. But I really enjoy being on the mic and being in the booth, and I'm grateful for any kind of, just grateful for any of the kudos that any of us in our community receive.
Thanks so much for being a part of this, Christopher. This is great.
Sure. No problem, Roy.